Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the new episode of X Vlog Live. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting down for the third time in I think a month, Colt, with the legendary Colt Eastwood, who is closing in on 150,000 subscribers. Lost a few like myself because we had some things to say about Halo that some people didn't dig. We'll talk about that later. But Colt, brother, I appreciate you being here. We have a loaded show to talk about. We got some hypothetical conversations regarding what if Microsoft pulls off the deal of the century and does get their hands, of course, on Activision Blizzard specifically, and more importantly, Call of Duty. What does that mean for Xbox? What does that mean for Xbox Game Pass? We're going to get into that. We're also going to get into what happens, Colt, after this deal. Who does Microsoft pick up? Because it's probably not going to be another publisher, but they are working with a ton of incredibly talented developers who I think have to become Xbox first party, simply because, again, this is becoming a very interesting topic for consolidation in the industry. We're starting to see it come from everywhere. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. And I think that in reality, what's going to wind up happening is smaller teams are going to find it very, very expensive and hard to live outside of being under a publisher's banner, because a publisher's banner like Microsoft, like Sony, like any of the big ones, EA, they have money, and they have money to burn and spend. And when you have that kind of money on the back end of your development team, you can develop and make the best game possible. When you're struggling to pay the bills, well, we've seen what happens with those kind of games. And of course, we're going to talk about Japan, and that's what we're going to open with. But Colt, how have you been, brother?
I've been good. It's been, like you say, it's been a little bit dicey with the Xbox news. And yeah, it's been really strange. So I've had kind of a difficult time getting a hold of how I want to talk about things or what I want to talk about. But some of the things that have been unfolding the past couple of days have really charged me in a different way. And hopefully we'll get to talk about that candidly today on the show.
Yeah, I think we're going to get right into it. Now, one of the things, Colt, that we've heard on, and you've heard it, I've heard it. Obviously, we're a part of the big community at large here. There is a subset that don't have that Japanese games, JRPGs, those types of experiences. They don't float everyone's boat. They happen to float mine. I've been a big fan because remember, I talked about this on many of my shows. I used to import pretty much everything. And I beat Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1 in Japanese using FAQs, and then beat it again when it came out to America. So I've always been a fan of the region, the culture, but more so what they brought to gaming. And, Xbox in Japan, well, it's not a topic that has a very, very deep hole because, they have failed in that region almost since the beginning when the OG Xbox launched there. But now they are doing some different things. And, good friends of the community and friends of this particular show, for purexbox.com is one of the sites I love to use because they don't do the clickbait. They do factual news. And one of the stories that they dropped yesterday at 1 p.m. and the author was Ben Kerry. The title of the article is Xbox Game Studios Japan is working on a truly groundbreaking product for Xbox. And in parentheses, this was quoted, "We are working with top-class developers." So when I say we, I want to talk about Matt Smith. Now, if you don't know who Matt Smith is, well, Matt Smith is a producer of games for Xbox Publishing, and he is currently in Japan putting these incredible stories and new IPs together. Well, it's what he had to say that set off the Xbox community in excitement, Colt. And this is what he had to say. "My team at Xbox Publishing here in Japan is growing. We're working on top-class developers on truly groundbreaking product for Xbox. DMs are open, happy to answer any questions." And in the tweet, he had added a second tweet of roles that are currently available. and he highlighted Microsoft hiring for a technical senior producer, among others. And they're asking that you, whoever applies for this, would be fluent in Japanese. That is definitely required. So you're going to be working in Japan, and they're asking you to be strong with C++ programming. And again, I'm not going to go over every position that's open, but there's quite a few of them. Now, why I decided, Colt, to open up the show is because I have, again, this is a small channel, right? But as we continue to grow, I start to make friends in the industry, some that are known and some wish to remain, quieter in the shadows. And after this, or right before this story dropped, I got a DM regarding what is going on in Japan. And my sources stay nameless because that's how they want to be. And the person that dropped me the DM, several DMs as a matter of fact, mentioned three names: Tabata, Sakaguchi, and Kojima. Now, these are legendary producers of some of the biggest games that have come out of PlayStation, come out of Square Enix, and they have a history in the industry of 25 plus years each. Well, this is what the quote from the DM says. We already knew about Kojima, Boom, but it looks like they're circling the wagons in Japan. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but it's the next paragraph that has me very excited. Now, obviously, we knew that this was becoming something special, Colt, when Clobriel himself got involved. Now, you know Clobriel as well as I do, and he doesn't talk out of the side of his mouth. He does when he drops information, Colt. It's usually important, it's groundbreaking, it's relevant, and it's important to the conversation. So he says this: Xbox Game Publishing, building first-party content, is building a team in Asia. The team in Japan is working on top-class developers, and open positions refers to large budgeted games. Now, Colt, when you hear this, from the DM that I got, Pure Xbox did a story. Now Clobriel is talking about this. Should Xbox gamers get excited if you are a fan of Japanese type titles?
Yeah, there's only been a handful of exclusive Japanese developed games on the platform. They were mostly in the early part of the 360 era, and they were non-existent last generation. So Phil's been saying since XO19, I think, that they want to have a stronger presence in Japan. And it's funny when you talk about the games that you've played. I grew up not playing very many Japanese games. So Japanese JRPGs are not something I have a whole lot of experience with. And a lot of turn-based stuff has not been something that I've liked. It's interesting because in the mid-90s, until for about 8 or 10 years, I kind of wasn't really gaming. And I've kind of explained this. This is like the hotbed of when some of the major JRPGs came out and when some of the bigger unconventional games that were super popular that we don't see anymore came out. So I kind of missed that era. So when I hear that Phil wants to establish a studio or get content from Japan, it's really, really good, because a strange thing we're seeing is a very popular trending thing for people from Japan and Asia sharing that they've bought a Series S or X. Like, it's a big deal to them.
Dude, I have seen that in my feed more times in
almost every day.
Yeah, almost every day. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where PlayStation has it's 9 out of 10 consoles are PlayStation, and the rest are Switches and PCs and mobile, of course. But even PlayStation isn't super gigantic in the games as a whole industry in Japan. But there's an interesting turn, a paradigm shift where people in Japan are like, this Xbox platform's really great, and they're announcing in Asia and Southeast Asia areas where they're bringing PC Game Pass. So this is just all part of this plan where Xbox is becoming a more globalized company instead of a American company that has a foothold here, or has games in different parts of the world. And me being a person I've only been in North America, I've never traveled outside of the country. I can't grasp how big this is and what this means, other than having the privilege to talk to people from different countries that we get to talk to on our shows or on social media, on Xbox Live, being on party chats with people that are from Europe or from different countries. This is a big shift, finally, long overdue for Xbox.
You're 100% right. And, one of the things that we have seen, you talked about a paradigm shift. One of the things that were during the 90s that were big in Japan were consoles. We used to, when you ran to the store to get your magazine, you would find the pictures of people lined up for 3 days for the new Nintendo, the new PlayStation, whatever, right? Any new console, there were people waiting in line for what seemed like days. That was a thing. That's no longer a thing. Does it still happen? I'm assuming for some consoles, sure, but they are a mobile type of on-the-go gamers. They game on their phone. They're going to be gaming on the Steam Decks when they get them. They're playing in their internet cafes, on their laptops and on their tablets that are like laptops. And one of the things that we saw take off for Xbox was the xCloud, or cloud gaming. It has been a thing over there. Now, is it the biggest thing since sliced bread? No, well, not yet. But Game Pass is doing very well in those regions of the world where notoriously they have failed in regards to trying to gain a ground. Now, are they ever going to outdo Sony and Nintendo? Hard to say, to be honest with you. Hard to say, only because, well, those are Japanese-based companies. They have an incredible legacy there. They have an incredible fan base there. So it's unlikely. But will they give them a run for their money, Colt? I think that they absolutely can, especially if they continue partnering with big-name, high-profile Japanese developers. Now, I do have one last quote that I want to talk about that was very exciting. And this was, of course, again, from my source that reached out to me as this whole thing was unfolding yesterday. And he says this, Colt: I have heard that Microsoft actually has had a healthy amount of Japanese games in development around last E3, that someone was surprised that they stayed under wraps. There thought that there was around 5 games in active development. Now that's saying something. Go back to the 360 era, and the first 2 for me that jump off the page are Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. Lost Odyssey is a game that was 4 discs, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been 5. So correct me in the chat if anyone knows for absolutely sure. I absolutely loved that game, and people are clamoring for a remake on the same level of Final Fantasy. And I think the game deserves it, and I hope that comes to fruition one day, because, I say don't remake it like Final Fantasy VII, where it's going to come out in parts. Do an HD remake, you know what I'm saying, and deliver Lost Odyssey, with some oomph in the background. I think that there's a real story to be told here. We know that Microsoft here in the States, Colt, they are giving Sony a run for their money. This is far from last gen, where they were number 3 pretty much because if they could have been number 5, they might have been 5. But they were 3 because, well, that's just what the 3 that were in the industry at the time. But with everything they're doing, 2 different consoles, one is $300. Xbox Game Pass is definitely a conversation. A cloud gaming, potentially 34 studios after this deal with Activision Blizzard. They have really turned the tides on both Nintendo and Sony. And what's interesting is they have an amazing relationship with Nintendo. I don't want to say so much with Sony, because Jim is always going to be Jim Ryan. He's going to do what's the best for his community. And Xbox, is always trying to do best for everyone, but some people just don't accept the hand. And I don't think Jim ever will, to be honest with you. But before we get to your final point on this, before we move on to the second topic, Colt, got to thank a couple of people. Gamers Play HUD Zero drops an outstanding $2 super chat and says Xbox will wake sleeping gamers out there. JP dominance. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility for that for sure. We had another one come in from Jacob Novick, who drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says Crash and Spyro will be the two top characters on the outline Xbox face, regardless of exclusivity or not. Kids and parents will look towards Xbox. Yeah, I have a whole theory on how the market leader, that term, Sony is going to lose it, and I don't think they're ever going to get it back because inherent value. Look, folks, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but the world kind of sucks right now. Cream cheese is $8 for right. Gas is over here is just under $5. A box of cereal is $6 here in New Rochelle, New York. $6 for a box of cereal? Are you fucking kidding me? But here's the thing. That's a current reality. And you know what another current reality is? People don't have spare money for gaming for their kids or even for themselves simply because the world is not allowing us to have that. The world is expensive. Rent's gone up. Car insurance has gone up. Everything has gone up except what, Colt? Our paychecks. They have not gone
right.
up.
Yeah.
And right now, when you go to buy a PlayStation game, whatever game that may be, whether it's a AAA bomb or just another first party, here in New Rochelle, New York, it is $76.43 after tax, over $75, right, for one PlayStation, a AAA bomb. I bought Horizon Forbidden West because I'm a fan of the character, the IP. And I put maybe 8 hours into it, and I felt like I wasted my money because the bugs were egregious. And I should have waited. Now I feel like I should have waited for a sale because that one was a $76 game. And when you turn around and you look at the other side of the coin, which is, again, you talk about one Colt, you got to talk about the other. For that $76, you can get 5 months of Game Pass. Now, depending on what 5 months you get, well, that could be the end. Let's say it's the end of this year. Well, they have 4 AAA bombs releasing in there, including the biggest RPG in the history of Bethesda. And you can get that plus 500 games in there. Again, the inherent value is a topic that people get upset about, Colt. They get mad you keep talking about it, but why wouldn't you talk about it? What are your thoughts on them using everything that they have in their power to now appeal to Japanese gamers? Right? You have a console with power. You have a console that's small, that fits in their homes. They feel comfortable buying. They can play on the go on their phones. But then when you add these legendary Japanese producers, and they can, and again, we don't know what kind of game they're gonna release, Colt. It could be terrible. But what if it's not? What if it's an incredible experience like Lost Odyssey? They could win Japan.
I mean, that's not all they're doing. Like, to be able to, the main focus, I'm sure, like for Phil and the team to think, oh, we can sell some Series X's and maybe a lot of Series S's, because I think they've already surpassed what the Xbox One sold in its entire generation with this new generation of consoles. But people in Japan aren't buying the console. What the draw is, the pitch for Japan is, you can play our franchises, you can play our game experience on our platform, even all of the other games that you would normally play on your PC or on your PlayStation. You can play them on your phone, you can play them on your PC. And mostly with their PC, because the PC audience is so huge over there, that is available to you in Japan. So what they're doing is they're bringing that fan base into the acknowledgement of the Xbox brand, because they don't really acknowledge it over there. I mean, why would they? There's plenty of competition, and they're settled in where they want to play, and where you can bring players in with you got that console that's so small, but you can bring them in with Game Pass and Game Pass on PC. But the other thing is they can build a couple of studios, or they can build one studio and build some exclusive Japan developed games. But one of the major problems we saw, especially all last generation, I complained about it a lot, was that the PS4 had a bunch of games that were Japanese developed that just did not go to the Xbox. just because.
Yeah.
They just didn't feel they needed to support it. It wasn't because PlayStation paid extra. The developers just said, oh, we'll be fine. We'll sell plenty on PlayStation. We don't need to worry about Xbox isn't big enough. This is a situation where a Japanese developed game would just finally get that situation where they're like, oh yeah, of course we're going to build an Xbox version. Xbox is part of the pipeline now, and it wasn't before. So that is probably the number one priority for Xbox, is to not be left behind where these developers, like even Square Enix has made a game and not even bothered to put it on the Xbox. So we've seen some pretty big developers do that.
Well, look, it's funny you say that,
Colt.
It's funny you say that, because I want to bring up a number for you to elaborate on your point. You brought up Square Enix. I just looked up the sales numbers. 5.5 million copies on the PlayStation 4 and 5. That's it. That's for a game that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make and only came out in a part. So we don't know when 2, 3, and 4 are coming out. They only sold 5.5 million copies. That's not good. So it makes you wonder. I actually, King David, obviously, you know who King David is. I think everyone knows who King David is. He said that Microsoft was going to become so big that Japanese publishers that used to look at them and laugh are going to have to now look at them and acknowledge them in the room. And and would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's the number one priority, is that they get support from Japan. And when they've talked about support, I think that's what they've meant more than anything than just buy. I don't think they're talking about buying consoles. I don't think they're really talking about building our own Japanese-based games. I think that major priority is for Xbox to become acknowledged and part of the pipeline. I don't know how to explain it. Like, you just can't ignore that platform because they're missing out on sales. Xbox is missing out on sales revenue from those games. And then the fan base, they can't play those games unless they go get a Switch or a PC or a PlayStation.
Yeah.
So that's a whole difference. And they spent 10 years with, everyone's complained about this, but Xbox spent almost a decade fighting against Microsoft management that didn't care about gaming. In fact, wanted to destroy it. Terry Myerson wanted the Xbox games division to just fizzle away, like just starve it, and maybe it'll just go away. And that's probably way harsher than it really is, the way I just said it.
No,
but it is absolutely what happened. They had 4 studios. Phil was able to push out some games like Rise and Sunset Overdrive. And then after that, they had nothing for the entire generation. They were barely able to hobble on with some couple of third-party deals. And then the Forza, Gears, and Halo machine was all that was actually making games, and Rare was working the whole generation on Sea of Thieves. We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah. No, Terry Myerson, when the whole thing was going on with him, behind his back, he was called the human roadblock because he shot down everything. And I've said that on my shows. I'm not making that up, folks. Someone actually told me that. And that's certainly not a good thing. That is for sure. But he's no longer a part of the him and Donnie D gone, long gone. And since they've put Phil in charge, all you can say is that it's been aces across the board. Look, the Japanese conversation isn't going away, folks. If it's not your bag, I hear you. I'm not going to argue and say, well, why don't you give Japanese games a chance? Because you play what you want to play. But I hear people that they should actually say that they should abandon Japan. And if you are one of those people that are saying that, no offense, you're just not reading the room correctly. I'm sorry to say, because all regions matter. If a game is not your bag, again, I absolutely understand what you're talking about. But just because you don't dig it doesn't mean someone sitting next to you does as well. So with that said, Colt, I do want to move on to topic number 2, and this is the lead story. Now, one of the things that I did for the cover art for this particular show is I took a Xbox Series S box, and on that box, I was able to, because I'm not an artist. You're an artist. You know how to draw. I was able to maneuver a picture onto that box, which was of course Call of Duty, with a little Xbox Game Pass logo. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not tooting my own horn, but it'll actually look legit. And this is something, Colt, that is potentially going to become a reality. Now, I want to help promote what you guys did on Monday. If you missed it, Colt show on Monday was magnificent. I finished listening to it when I was cleaning the house yesterday. He had on Hogue Law and, of course, the crazy one known as Gaz, Mr. Sauce himself. And there were a lot of the Colt. You guys talked a lot about what's happening. Hogue has the Activision Blizzard acquisition at 70-30. He had it at one point at 80-20. And, he doesn't have it any lower. He still thinks there's a good shot that it's going to go through. So do I. So I kind of want to talk about the hypothetical, because right now, when anyone says market leader, it's not Microsoft. Some people will argue, well, the Switch has been 36 months as MPD king. So are they the market leader, or Sony the market leader? I'm just going to say that it's currently Sony. Sony's the market leader. But I'm going to be honest with you, not for much longer. And I kind of want to bring everyone's attention back to the Black Friday. I believe it was 2019. It might have been 2019 or it was 2019. They did something so incredible that Black Friday. They had the special edition Spider-Man console that was $200, and they packaged Spider-Man 2018 in there, and they broke records unlike anything that has been done before, and I don't think anyone has surpassed it yet. And that's because it was a $200 PlayStation 4, which at that time, Colt, was the water cooler king, right? Everyone talked around the water cooler about what amazing game Sony just launched or that was coming out that fall. And you can't argue the fact that they dominate the conversation when it comes to those over-the-shoulder, single-player, story-driven, lifelike graphics type of games. They do, and they're fantastic. But I don't know how much longer Sony's going to be holding this title, because, and I say that, Colt, Activision Blizzard, depending on how you look at this deal, it is a three-headed demon, because you can take any one of these paths and be considered a winner. If they bought it for King, well, King is one of the biggest mobile publishers in gaming, right? Number one. If you pick Blizzard, well, they were number one in PC gaming. The company kind of messed things up, so people lost faith. But Call of Duty is what I want to focus on for this topic. And look, Call of Duty multiplayer, Colt, it's not my bag. It was way back in the days when Modern Warfare first came out. Just not my bag. I'm not the audience. I'm the single player guy. I'm the selfish single player old man in the room that just wants to sit and play, a bombastic Call of Duty. But Colt, my question to you is, when Microsoft is able to slap Call of Duty now on a box, whether that be the Series X, the Series S, the rumored stick with the controller that we're hearing is going to come out for $99 potentially this year. When they can slap Call of Duty and a Game Pass logo on a box that's $300, $200, $100 for the stick and controller, these are going to be considered those kind of sales that you went out to buy strawberries for the missus, and you saw this thing on the shelf and you went and got it because you went to Walmart, and you're like, you know what, I can't pass this up. This is incredible. Call of Duty, $200. All right, I'm sorry, hon.
How do you go from like a Call of Duty bundle to like a really old 60-year-old man buying strawberries at Fred Meyer?
It happens. Trust me, consumers are funny. But honestly, Colt, again, this is hypothetical, folks, so please don't get in your feels if you disagree or agree. When that happens, Call of Duty, even though the last couple haven't been so great, they have been the most selling. When Call of Duty becomes first party and Microsoft now has full marketing rights, and we know that their marketing rights, so Sony's marketing rights, expire in 2024. So I don't know what Microsoft can do. I don't even know if they can even put Call of Duty into Xbox Game Pass while Sony has the marketing rights. I'm not sure how.
No, they can't. They cannot.
So
we know they cannot.
So it would be a breach of contract.
That's been clarified that there's no moving any part of Call of Duty until the marketing contract is up with PlayStation. And I know where you're going with this, and a lot of people have different ideas. Call of Duty will probably stay the way it is, I think, forever. I think as it's something that Phil has established early on, before you can officially say anything, I think their intent is to leave Call of Duty a multi-plat forever. That's my prediction.
You know what?
And as far as it going to Game Pass after the marketing rights are up, absolutely. And there is a lot about this FTC ruling and approval, disapproval, whatever is going to happen. And I think the FTC thinks they're doing one thing. They have an idea that they're going to protect consumers, and Hoag's Law illustrated it so well. But they think, oh, we're going to protect consumers. We're going to make sure everyone gets a fair shake with this deal because big, powerful tech companies are spending all their money and they're going to ruin everything. And what they're going to end up doing, at the very worst, Boom, is they may approve this deal with conditions. And that's why Hoag's Law said he is at a 70-30. He thinks that they will approve it with major conditions. And as funny as it sounds, because it doesn't benefit us as Xbox fans, or if you play primarily on an Xbox, the very worst the FTC could do is say, this is the absolute very worst, all right? They could say Activision and Blizzard games will be available on PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Premium. Now, what that means, and they could say, we are going back. We want Bethesda games to be playable on PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Premium. And what that means is, like, why? Like, these studios were told they were going to work on the Xbox platform and that they wouldn't be building a PlayStation version of a game. So they're going to have to come up with a way for something like Starfield in the future, when this, in a year and a half, when this closes, or in a year, something like Starfield to actually be on PlayStation, but you couldn't buy the game. You could only play the game on PlayStation Plus if they paid Microsoft and Xbox to get Starfield on PlayStation Plus, or on PlayStation Now, which they'd have to pay Microsoft for. And it would be exclusive to the service, which is counter to what the FTC is angry about in all this time. Hoag's Law said, Cole, this isn't about the games. This isn't about where games can or can't be. Because I said, Hoag, this is bullcrap. Why is the FTC coming out this? Xbox puts their games nearly everywhere.
I heard that.
Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda games will be everywhere you can possibly imagine.
Play them on a fridge, play them on a tablet, your phone, wherever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, except for a PlayStation, and maybe, I would say except for a Switch, but big AAA games don't normally go to a Switch unless a studio decides to port it years later and dumb it down so it'll run, right? So it's out of the equation. But Xbox's games are everywhere but a PlayStation console. So if the FTC's worried about a monopoly, he said it's not about the games where they are. It's about the tech and the subscription service being bigger than anyone can compete with. And I think either way, the FTC is only going to be doing Microsoft and Xbox a favor and make them bigger, because if they force the games to be on PlayStation, Microsoft's going to say, away from the fans' ears, right? Microsoft's going to say, we're going to put these games on PlayStation. We're going to make a crap ton more money because we're going to bring in all these subscribers. We're going to sell a bunch on PlayStation because we were forced to, and we're just going to be able to buy more studios and make more games because we're going to make more money. That's the absolute worst scenario that I think is possible. I think we're just going to get to the point where they're going to go through all this stuff and realize the monopoly thing is much crap. Yeah. And they're just going to say, go ahead and buy the publisher. PlayStation just bought 9 studios in the past year and a half. You guys are trying to pick up, 5 or 6 or whatever it's going to be.
It's interesting. I talked about this on last week's Primetime Gaming. I said, the lead story, Colt, for that particular episode was, how is it that Microsoft is in the crosshairs of the FTC for this one? Now, I understand $70 billion, the biggest deal Microsoft as a company, as an entity, has ever done. I hear it. Absolutely hear that. But Embracer Group has 76 studios, and they just publicly announced, we have no ambition to slow down. Sony, again, you mentioned it, a bunch of publishers, including one in the form of Bungie for $3.6 billion, right? We know that they have, Jim Ryan himself has come out and said, no, we are in active talks to add additional developers to SIE PlayStation. Tencent, well, they're never sitting on their hands. They're always buying something, and they're always, maybe it's 10% to this company, 30% to this company, straight up buying companies. So how is it that Microsoft is in the crosshairs of the FTC, even though the price is the price of the price? Now, look, I'll say this. Look, I'm not a business. I don't have a business degree. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a retired police officer. I understand real law, not business law. That's not my field. But when even if someone as a minuscule intelligence in regards to law that I may have, common sense has to play a part here. And I know that Mrs. Khan is, she's trying to make a name for herself. She wants to be the hard-nosed voice of the people. We saw a couple of weeks ago, the senator from New York came out and they said some pretty dumb things for people in high positions about how we're here for the workers, even though we all know that the FTC doesn't give a crap about the workers. They care about the consumer. But we'll let that rest. This deal is going to go through. And one of the things that the FTC doesn't have is spendable cash for a long fighting lawsuit. And we know that because in a couple of weeks ago, the MGM Amazon deal was potentially going to be held up by the FTC. And what did Amazon do? Amazon has a lot of money, pretty much as Microsoft does. They said, okay, we're going to now sue the FTC because they're blocking this deal and they're not making it out to be a monopoly. We get the studio, it's not a monopoly. And what did the FTC almost instantaneously do is they said, okay, we're approving the deal. And it was learned at that time, and this comes from people within the know, that the FTC does not have the finances for a long ongoing lawsuit. And I have a feeling that is weighing on the back of many people's heads about trying to block this deal, because Microsoft could in fact say, you know what, you're trying to stop the deal because of a monopoly situation. Colt, even with this deal, they're still number 3 in revenue. And who's number 1? Sony. SIE PlayStation is number 1. They just bought a ton of studios. Jim said we're buying a bunch more, and they just announced their own streaming service. I don't understand how a monopoly could even come into the conversation. And again, even if this takes until next year, I still think this deal is going down. And I think that and I've said this,
but it's not about the revenue. Like, PlayStation is number 2 in a market leader position. Yeah. And I'm going to do a big video project this weekend or next week about how I think Xbox is actually the market leader. Contrary to everyone else's belief and how much they want to make fun of me. I'll get into that next week when I put this together.
Wait to hear it. Yeah, your video.
But that revenue is not what the FTC is not worried about. Who's making the most money? They're worried about who is keeping the consumers out of options or setting the price. And it's funny, I just kind of disagreed with you, but I also disagree with you, of course, Boom, because Sony is absolutely one of the price-setting monopolistic companies. Indeed. They said, we say games are $70. You're going to grin and bear it. And they've been followed along or done this alongside Rockstar, 2K, and
Activision.
EA and Activision. Yeah. So the biggest publishers, which I would say those publishers and studios are the market leaders, and they set the price. So when you have the biggest and the highest revenue, you can also get into a situation where you set the price. They're scared that Microsoft is going to build Game Pass so big, it'll be the de facto place, which it already is, to rent your games in a game service, the most affordable way to play. And then they're going to jack the price up, and no one will be able to come in and compete in this market. And it's funny because when you look at PlayStation, they're absolutely trying to compete in the services and games rental department, and they are not even close. Well, it's their fault. It's not Microsoft's fault. They're not competing because they refuse to do day and date. They refuse to go to PC. So they've got their own problems, and I'm hoping the FTC look, Microsoft's doing it right. They're offering so many options. They're keeping an affordable price. They're trying to build this thing up so it become massive. I mean, why in the world would they ruin it by raising prices? But then again, Netflix is now raising prices, adding advertisements into their TV show service or their movie service. Yeah, it is really messy.
It is, and it's funny. Let me catch up some of the super chats because Colt, a couple of them are actually relevant to the conversation. First of all, Outbreak Podcast, Web Dave drops in a very generous $5 super chat and says, "I really hope this is in the works. Game Pass needs more Japanese developers develop games." Colt, great to hear your opinion on gaming. Xbox Showcase soon. Yeah, we're going to definitely get into that on a future conversation because that's coming, Colt, and that's going to be big. And Microsoft has pretty hefty shoes to fill because last year's was a 10, best in their 2-decade in the market. I don't know how they're going to beat that, to be honest with you. But Viper XT drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, besides partnerships, I expect Microsoft to increase their presence in Japan by expanding Tango Gameworks into 2 or 3+ teams. Yeah, Tango is a pretty big studio, and they have relevance in Japan. So I think you're onto something. Gamers Play HUD Zero drops an additional $2 super chat and says, Japanese fighting games, shump games, give Xbox the shaft lately. Yeah, I mean, King of Fighters came to Xbox. You know what I'm saying? That and SNK has been very stingy with their games on Xbox. They'll release them on the Switch, and they'll release them on the PlayStation, sure. But Xbox is now a part of that conversation. I'm very happy for that. Sith Lore drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, hello, gentlemen. Both shows on Monday were fire. Well, thanks so much for that, dude. Definitely appreciate it. And we also had one come in. Oh, we have 2 more. Drawn TJ, generous friend of the program. He drops a $5 super chat and says, the deal is going through. I don't see it failing. Hi, guys, and welcome, Drawn TJ. And we have one that's relevant to the conversation. I want to get your opinion on this. This comes in. Well, first of all, Drawn TJ drops an additional $5 super chat and says, Microsoft needs to get Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics before Sony tries to buy Square Enix. I have a feeling that that Square Enix is going to sell those, including the Tomb Raider IP. I really think that they have no interest in Western developed games in Square Enix, and they've said that publicly. But good friend of the program, Colt, Kirby Zil Louise says this after dropping a very generous $10 super chat and says, Microsoft could legit argue that Game Pass isn't the leading subscription service because NVIDIA GeForce Now has more games on it, and the government would legit fall for it because they are that out of touch. Yeah, if you look at all of the streaming services, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Netflix, I know that I know games are different than film and TV shows. I get it, but they're considered they're considered media. It's a media. They're all kind of put into one big Easter basket. And Microsoft's 30 million subscribers isn't not even close to the top. So there's a good shot that they could use that as an argument. He drops an additional $10 super chat. Never mind that GeForce Now isn't the same as Gamecast because you must own the games first, and all you do is rent a VM plus GPU from NVIDIA. But government is just that dumb. Indeed, they really are. Look, Colt, everyone had a lot to say. And, we have almost 400 people here, which is freaking awesome for the middle of the day. So, Colt, thank you for being here because you obviously bring in the peeps. So definitely appreciate that, Colt. But look, I do want to reel this in a bit and just pose the question to you. Some people in the community are really wound tight, Colt, about Microsoft allowing the newest Call of Duty, which we expect 2024, right? They said they're taking a break 2023. This year is Modern Warfare 2 remake. That's going to be great because last year, 2019's Modern Warfare was magnificent. It was unbelievable how good that game was.
Yeah.
I say, and again, I got yelled by many people, in not so much in this chat, but in the messages for YouTube that I'm dumb for saying that Call of Duty should not be an Xbox exclusive. I personally don't care because that's where I'm going to play it, and it's going to be an Xbox Game Pass. But Colt, the question is, the next Call of Duty 2024. It's going to be a big one. It's the new Modern Warfare. Everyone's anticipating it. It's supposed to be the biggest new one in a decade for them. If that somehow comes into Xbox Game Pass and it's available multi-plat, you can get it on PC, you can get it on your PlayStation. Microsoft is going to find themselves potentially really gaining a bunch of new subscribers to Game Pass, plus new people into the console. Because if they could, like I said earlier, we could see a Spider-Man situation where if the Series S is $200, and you can tell that you're the new person that's buying an Xbox for the first time, there are 500 games, and oh, by the way, Call of Duty is included in Xbox Game Pass, and we're giving you a 3 months pass to start. You are going to potentially get the normies, the 85% of casual gamers that won the generation for Sony, right? They won the PlayStation 4 generation for SIE because it was the cool system. It was the system that everyone talked about. It had some of the biggest first-party games. It has Spider-Man. It has God of War. It has Nathan Drake, and it was only $200, and Spider-Man was in there. Yeah. I think that could happen. What are your thoughts on that before we move on to the last topic?
I mean, that's something they have to do. I just don't know if the timing will work for them to bring a bundle like that. We're already seeing the Series S on sale for $269 at some places where retailers are taking a little bit of cut to get those out. Yeah, I mean, it could be really big. And when we talk about, like when you said like a half an hour ago, you said Call of Duty's not your bag. I thought the same thing. Like, it's not my bag, but it's millions of people's bag. Like, and I think when people get to a certain age, maybe they might kind of say, I'm kind of done with Call of Duty. And then the younger generation comes up and they're always kind of keying in on a certain audience. And then there's people that only play that. So a Call of Duty bundle would be killer.
Yeah.
And I think if Xbox has this many consoles available in the holiday, which they probably will, they're going to have big sales numbers. And in an era when you really don't need an Xbox because you can play everything on a PC or on your browser or whatever. So to see them compete this way and get this many sales on a console that before the last generation, people said you don't want an Xbox. Now they're trying to say you don't need an Xbox, and they're still selling like crazy.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good.
Yeah. It's a good time to join Xbox for a lot of reasons. You know, obviously, if you are a PlayStation only gamer, and you know, again, what I think you could possibly see is a lot of Xbox gamers left after the 360 era because Sony did you know, they just killed it when it came to marketing. Colt, they had all the right answers. They had a cheaper $100 cheaper console. It was faster, 900p versus 1080p. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to go back to when Xbox kind of dropped the ball a bit. But they have been leading the charge. Real quick, Pragmatic Eagle, who's been a member of this channel for, wow, ladies and gentlemen, 32 months. Holy matrimony. That's crazy, dude. He said this before, but relevant to what was just said. People, hold on just a sec. Where are you? This chat is flying by. Thanks for everyone for being as active viewer. He says, but relevant to what you would just what was just said, people are clueless about Japanese games because few releases here. They are not all turn-based. They're absolutely not all turn-based. Don't believe that. There are plenty of action games out there that are just magnificent that you might not know about. Gamernomics, who's been a member for 6 months, Colt. He says this: I can't wait for people to compare Spartacus numbers with Game Pass when it's out. Forgetting the essentials is needed for online and cloud saves. Yeah, that's one of the things that I find to be almost egregious. And the only reason why I'm going to subscribe, and hopefully I can still find these $30 year passes, is for cloud saves for my PlayStation. I don't really care about anything else. And it's egregious that I have to spend that to have cloud saves where everywhere else it's free. It's gross. Ducato drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says, Series S plus a 512 megabit velocity external hard drive preloaded with Call of Duty at 25 less now, it would be high selling package. Yeah, I mean, you if they wanted to, add a hard drive where you can offload it, that would be something else. It's Microsoft is quietly positioning themselves to make a big run at market leader, and it really does start with Call of Duty. But Colt, I want to talk about what happens after the Activision Blizzard deal, because we have a feeling that it's going to go through. So we're all in agreement that, yeah, it's just getting scrutinized. It's going to happen. And that's all fine and good. But I want to talk about, Colt, what happens afterwards. Now, right now, Microsoft is working with IO Interactive, right? They're making Project Dragon. We know that they're working on the new James Bond game. They're currently working with Avalanche Studios, right? They're currently working on Contraband, and I think another secret project, Crystal Dynamics. Well, we know that they have taken over full development duties over at Perfect Dark, which is going to be amazing. But they have other studios that they work with. Certain Affinity. They've been working with Halo for 15 years. Max Hoberman and that team have made some of the most iconic Halo maps ever. Right, and they just announced that they're working on a battle royale. That's coming. That's exclusive to that team. You also have Asobo. Asobo is they have a 10-year deal with Microsoft for Flight Sim. They have their other series that they're working on that's coming out this year with the Rats. I cannot wait for the sequel. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the game. But Colt. We have heard.
The Rats. You're talking about Plague Tale Requiem.
Yes. Thank you. I could think of the Rats, but I couldn't think of Plague Tale. Go figure.
I was like, Rats. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
One of the things that you have talked about on your shows, one of the things that I have talked about on my shows that we have heard that the community, even some of the biggest names in the business have said, this Activision Blizzard deal came out of literally nowhere. And it wasn't originally a part of Microsoft's plans to add to Xbox Game Studios. I know I've heard that from several sources that I consider to be top-notch in the industry conversation. And, obviously they can't do anything. They're a bit handcuffed right now, which is why I can't wait for this deal to get done so they can start buying again. Because right now, if they try to add anything else that's a certain amount of money, the FTC is going to look at them with a crooked eye, and it's going to be a mess. Who do you want to see join Xbox Game Studios after this deal is done? And I throw that question to the chat as well. Throw us your top 3 picks in the chat on who you want to see join, and try and keep them, relatively legitimate. I mean, we can all do
instead of like a big huge pipe dream. They need to buy Crystal Dynamics for sure. They need to buy Asobo. They're also the ones that did Flight Sim, right? They helped them make that game, so they need to buy them. And then I'm not a big fan of Hitman, but I know how great that game is. I know like Randolph Thor loves it to death, and if I would have had the patience to get into it, I could understand what he's talking about. But they make fantastic looking games, and they're very immersive, so they'd be a really good fit. So I think those 3 that they're already partnering with, and you get this whole organic growth.
I love
thing
the word
that everyone
organic.
tries to argue with, and it's like, I guess one of those. I guess I would actually throw out IO in favor of them grabbing. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. It's right there. The ones that made Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
Monolith.
Yeah,
Monolith.
Yes.
Monolith is fantastic.
Yeah.
They're so good. And Xbox has partnered with them very closely. They should have picked them up because they're working on the Wonder Woman game, I think.
Yes.
And it's like, why isn't Xbox like right there, like holding their hand going, what is it going to take? Like, this would be our superhero game. We know you know us, the hardware. Let's do it. Definitely Monolith. Yeah. Grab that Wonder Woman game before it gets declared multi-plat. Right to chat.
And it's funny. You know what's interesting? is that did not have a specific console attached to it. Didn't say, because normally when they make these announcements, hey, we're making a game for X, Y, and Z, right? It's coming out for these consoles. That didn't get that. So it's definitely worth a head scratch. But I want to pose something to you. You've talked about this on your show. The way that Square Enix threw Crystal Dynamics under the bus was nothing short of egregious. Right?
They're doing it to all their studios. But
they do, but specifically their Western development houses, which they really do not have any love or respect for. You don't throw your you don't go on public on social media to say that the studio just didn't have what it took to make a superhero game right, when you know that the single player in Marvel Avengers was fantastic. What hurt that game was the terrible multiplayer, the terrible loot system. There was a lot of things that went wrong, but it wasn't a single player campaign. In fact, single player campaign Colt was fantastic. My wish is, as much as I want IO, Monolith is a great pick. There are so many that are great picks. I would love Microsoft to not only get Crystal Dynamics, I would love to see them get Eidos Montreal, but even more so than that, Colt, I would love for them to get the Tomb Raider IP in a 3-package deal. Get both studios, get the IP, because if Crystal Dynamics goes, right, and that's something, and here's something that's interesting. Tell me if my detective skills have failed in this one. During the Unreal Engine 5 reveal, right, that same week, we learned that a new Tomb Raider was being made on the Unreal Engine 5. Now, when the original Tomb Raider series was announced as a remake, the consoles that it was going to be on was announced. They say, hey, it's coming out for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, blah, 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 whatever. Did you notice the absence of any console being attached to it? I did. It didn't say Xbox. It didn't say PlayStation. And I sat there and I said, I wonder if it's possible that this deal to take these off Square Enix's hands in regards to the Tomb Raider IP, Eidos Montreal, and more so Crystal Dynamics, is potentially already in the works. It made me wonder. And again, I see a lot of great picks. But I would love. Look, Colt. You remember when the Crystal Dynamics producers of Rise of the Tomb Raider weren't let off the stage because it was announced that it was going to be Xbox exclusive for a year. That was right. Awful. Right. They would not let them off the stage because they wanted them. When is it coming to PlayStation? How could you do this? Why? Well, in an interview that Phil did that same day, they asked him candidly, Phil, why? Why would you lock up Tomb Raider for a year? And he said very, very stoutly, listen, we don't have our own Uncharted. I wish we did. So we partnered with Crystal Dynamics to bring this to Xbox and our gamers, because we don't have our own Indiana Jones trekking type of game. And they could, even though Indiana Jones is being made by Machine Games, we know it's going to be great. But man, it would be something if they grab Tomb Raider. What are your thoughts on that, Colt, before we get on out of here?
I don't see them grabbing Tomb Raider. I think they took so much flack in 2015 that they'll never repeat that again. So, I think Tomb Raider is going to be multiplat. And with Machine Games already making that Indiana Jones game, I think that Indiana Jones game is going to be an exclusive, even though it's a big IP. That's not how, like a Marvel game can be an exclusive. So when people say you can't do that, Indiana Jones is a worldwide thing. Like, duh, you're doing Wolverine and Spider-Man over on.
And there's a third one that they're supposedly announcing this June, a third Marvel exclusive for Sony. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's another one that they haven't announced that they saved for their E3, and that will be the third one, and it's going to be an exclusive to PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that'll be a big deal. So, I don't think that Tomb Raider is going to go exclusive, but if they're being quiet because we don't know how this stuff goes down, and maybe Crystal Dynamics and Xbox teams have been talking for months about. I see it as this way. Hey, we're going to bring you back with Daryl Gallagher. We're going to partner with you to build this perfect dark game. And really what we want to do is just make sure we can work great together again like we did 5 years ago. And if it works out, we've been looking at buying you, Crystal Dynamics, and bringing you on the team. And if everything works out, we want to have that discussion. So keep that open. And Crystal Dynamics is probably like, dang, we'd love to get away from Square Enix. We build something great, and they don't like us. They don't like anything anybody makes, right? They don't like the way they perform. And you're right about Avengers. If I'll just tell the chat, if you want to play, please play Avengers and skip all of the stuff. Just do just the 7 or 8 main missions. Yeah, it's really, really fun. I was proven wrong big time when I played that last year. Anyway, so Crystal Dynamics is really good. So I think that talk is happening, and I think that's why some of that stuff is ambiguous right now. Because I got to leave their options open. Yeah.
Well, again, I've said this before, Colt. It's hard to understand how a big time third-party publisher like Square Enix can lend out one of their AAA teams. Hey, Xbox, go. I'm sure they paid for that, but if they should be making games for Square Enix, and apparently we know that Square Enix has no faith in them. So I say that if you don't have any faith in them, the people on that development team, you know how dejected they must have felt reading that after working 12, 14-hour days to get this game done, to hear that the publisher says that our talent is shit. Pardon my French. That's basically what they said, and it's gross. But listen, let me catch up on a couple of super chats, and that's going to do it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. These are quick 1-hour shows. Every now and again, we do a little bit longer, but hopefully you enjoyed all 3 topics. Drawn TJ says he wants, after dropping an additional $5 super chat, WB Crystal Dynamics and IO Asobo and Avalanche Studios. That is a hefty list. Sour Blow Gaming drops a very generous $5 super chat. A good friend of the program says Wonder Woman cross her arms with an X, which would be perfect for marketing like this blocking. That is kind of dope. Someone hired this kid over here and put him in marketing, because I kind of like that. The X sign from from Wonder Woman blocking the bullets. TK Chillin'. Wow, brother. He drops a very generous $20 super chat and says, hi, Boom and Colt. Great discussion. Well, thank you for that, brother. Definitely appreciate it. And folks, we have almost 400 people here. A lot of names that I've never seen before, probably because Colt Eastwood is here. If you are new to the program, we crossed 10K subscribers in January. We are just under 1,500 away for 12. That's what I want to close out the 2022 campaign with, is get to at least 12,000 subs and, keep this truck rolling. But I want to thank everyone that's here. If you are new, consider subscribing, and of course, hit the like button. But Colt, let's sell your brand, brother. Not only do you have an incredible podcast, but you do outstanding videos each and every week. And you already talked about live on the air that you're doing one that you think that Microsoft is already the market leader, and I don't disagree with that. I think that they are definitely setting themselves up to. I mean, just look at what they did. They were publisher of the year last year for a studio that doesn't have any bangers, right? So they're doing it right, and can't wait to see that video. But sell your brand. Tell everyone where they can reach out to you on social media. But more importantly, subscribe and help you get to that 150K subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you. I lost a few when I talked about Battle Royale, because I think so
did I.
that was what the rumor. That's what the rumor is, and apparently, this new mode we just saw for Halo this morning is not the full deal that Certain Affinity's working on. I'm going to look into that some more.
I saw someone put a video. I think it was Brad Sams that was talking about it. He posted a screenshot.
Called it Baby Royale.
Baby Royale. Yeah.
I think this is just some new modes. Like I don't know. I got to reach out to Jez and find out what he thinks is coming in the future. But yeah, go check out my Halo video. It was a tough one to for the audience reception. You know how it is sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes those topics don't go over well with people, but I'm very positive, super positive in that video, darn it. But yeah, you can check me out on YouTube at Colt Eastwood. I'm on Twitter at Colt Eastwood, where I reply to just about everybody. I try to, and it's good being on the show. I appreciate it. It's a good time,
dude. It was great to have you here. Obviously, we got a chance to hang out on prime time. Then, of course, I went out to your show that following Monday. I mean the same Monday evening, and of course,
that was a crazy day.
That was a crazy day, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. A lot to talk about, and of course, I'm happy that you were here for the full hour. We got 3 topics in. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself enough where you're going to hit the like button. Of course, if you're new, consider subscribing. Of course, I want to thank everybody that dropped in the super chats. Those allow my wife and I to do these monster giveaways. We just did one for Easter where we gave 8 gift cards for the total of $300. We have one coming the 4th of July. We have one coming in September. And then we have the big one. That one's going to be $500 plus for Christmas and the holidays in the fall. And that's that. Again, we use the super chats and the channel memberships to fund these big giveaways. So big thank you to that. And of course, I'll close out the show with something that's important to me, folks. Hopefully one day be important to you. And that's something that my father taught me with kids. And he said, son, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And for Colt Eastwood, #be nice. Take care, everybody.